Every single morning, thousands of employees walked into one of the most admired office buildings in Houston, Texas. They wore badges with pride. They believed in the company. They invested their savings, their retirement funds, and their futures into it. Then, in a matter of weeks, everything disappeared. The pensions were gone, the jobs were gone, and the company that once called itself the world's greatest, Enron, was nothing but a hollow shell of lies. This is not just the story of a company that failed. This is the story of how greed, arrogance, and a culture of deception brought down a corporate empire and changed the rules of business forever. The rise of a giant. Enron was founded in 1985 when Kenneth Lay merged two natural gas pipeline companies, Houston Natural Gas and Internorth, into a single powerful entity. Within a few years, the renamed company had transformed itself from a simple pipeline operator into something far more ambitious. It became an energy trading powerhouse, buying and selling electricity, natural gas, and eventually broadband services. By the late 1990s, Enron had become the darling of Wall Street. It was celebrated in business magazines, praised by analysts, and held up as a model of innovation. At its peak in 2000, the company was valued at roughly $68 billion and ranked as the seventh largest company in the United States. It employed nearly 29,000 people worldwide. Fortune magazine named it America's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years. Behind this golden image was a man named Jeffrey Skilling. Skilling joined Enron in 1990 as a consultant and quickly rose through the ranks. He was brilliant, aggressive, and deeply confident in his own vision. He pushed Enron to adopt a controversial accounting method known as mark-to-market accounting. Under this system, Enron could count the estimated future profits of a deal on its books the moment the deal was signed, not when the money actually arrived. This meant Enron could report enormous earnings from projects that had not yet generated a single dollar of real profit. On paper, the company looked unstoppable. Skilling also created a brutal internal culture where the bottom 20% of employees were fired every 6 months in a process critics called rank and yank. The message was clear: performance at any cost. Ethics were a weakness. Ambition was everything. This culture did not just allow dishonesty to flourish, it demanded it. Working alongside Skilling was Chief Financial Officer Andrew Fastow. While Skilling kept the public face polished, Fastow operated in the shadows. He created a web of off-the-books partnerships, shell companies with names like LJM Cayman and Raptor, that were designed to hide Enron's growing debt. These entities absorbed losses that Enron did not want investors to see. Fastow personally profited from these arrangements by tens of millions of dollars, while ordinary shareholders had no idea what was happening. The cracks began to show by 2001. The illusion was starting to fracture. In March of that year, a journalist named Bethany McLean published a now-famous article in Fortune magazine asking a simple but devastating question: is Enron overpriced? She pointed out that the company's financial reports were nearly impossible to understand, and that no one could clearly explain how the company was actually making its money. Wall Street brushed off her concerns. Enron executives were furious. When an analyst later pressed for a straightforward balance sheet during a conference call, Skilling erupted and insulted him publicly. It was the kind of reaction that reveals the pressure building behind closed doors. A few months later, in August 2001, Skilling abruptly resigned as CEO, citing personal reasons. He had held the top position for less than 6 months. Insiders later said he could see the storm approaching and wanted out before it hit. Before leaving, he sold nearly $60 million worth of his own Enron stock. Kenneth Lay stepped back in as CEO and tried to calm employees. He invited staff to ask questions, to drop concerns into an anonymous box. One of those concerns came from a vice president named Sharon Watkins. She had quietly been looking into the company's books and was alarmed by what she found. She handed Lay a detailed letter warning him that Enron could implode in a wave of accounting scandals. Lay's response was largely dismissive. The company's attorneys reviewed her concerns and concluded nothing improper had occurred. But the truth was unstoppable. In October 2001, Enron announced a massive $618 million quarterly loss and revealed a $1.2 billion reduction in shareholder equity. Investors panicked. The SEC launched a formal investigation. Credit rating agencies began downgrading Enron's debt. Within weeks, the company's stock price collapsed from over $80 per share to under $1. On December 2, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy protection. At the time, the largest bankruptcy filing in United States history. The aftermath and the lessons that changed everything. The fallout was catastrophic. Thousands of employees lost not only their jobs but their retirement savings. Many had been encouraged to invest their pensions heavily in Enron stock. When the company collapsed, those savings vanished. Meanwhile, executives like Lay and Skilling had been quietly selling their shares at peak prices while telling employees everything was fine. The FBI launched one of the largest white-collar crime investigations in its history. More than 45 agents and analysts were assigned to the case, combing through over 30 terabytes of data. Kenneth Lay was convicted on all 6 counts charged against him, including conspiracy and securities fraud, but died of a heart attack before he could be sentenced. Jeffrey Skilling was convicted on 19 counts, including conspiracy, securities fraud, and insider trading. He was sentenced to 24 years in prison, later reduced to 14. Andrew Fastow pleaded guilty and served 6 years behind bars. The accounting firm Arthur Andersen, one of the most prestigious in the world at the time, was found guilty of obstructing justice by shredding thousands of documents related to the Enron audit. The firm effectively ceased to exist as a result. A stunning collapse for a company with nearly a century of history. Out of the wreckage came sweeping reform. The United States government passed the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2002, one of the most significant pieces of financial regulation since the Great Depression. The law imposed strict new rules on financial reporting, made executives personally responsible for the accuracy of their company's books, and dramatically increased penalties for corporate fraud. It changed how public companies are governed across the entire country. Enron's story is not simply a business cautionary tale. It is a reminder that the most dangerous frauds are not those that look obviously wrong from the outside. They are the ones that are celebrated, awarded, and applauded right up until the moment they collapse. The executives at Enron were not operating in darkness. They were standing in boardrooms, shaking hands with politicians, appearing on magazine covers, and telling the world they were the smartest people in the room. The real hidden story behind Enron is not just about numbers on a balance sheet. It is about what happens when a company confuses performance with truth. It is about a culture that punished honesty and rewarded illusion. And it is a story about the thousands of ordinary people, the employees, the investors, the retirees, who trusted the system and paid the price when the people at the top decided the rules did not apply to them. The name Enron still appears in business textbooks around the world, not as an example of innovation, but as a warning of what happens when ambition swallows integrity whole.